About a year ago, I don't know if you guys remember, I think I put up a short little video about the shop flooding, and I might have posted some stuff about some concrete cutting we were doing here. Might have been just a quick little short video about cutting the concrete and installing some additional floor drains in the shop. Jason came over and helped me do that. While the guys were here cutting the concrete, one of the guys actually mentioned he was looking around and we were talking old cars. He was looking at all the old cars around the shop, and he said, if you're interested in an old car, you got to give this guy a call. He's got a little Porsche that he tried to sell us. Apparently, they were out doing some concrete work around his house, and at the time, he tried to sell them this little Porsche 914 that he had. So I got directions more or less how to get to the guy's house. I got a phone number. I went out, and it took me a couple of times to actually get a hold of him. And when I went out there, what I found was this little 1974 Porsche 914. It was winter, so the car was literally just buried in snow, kind of puddled down around the wheels, and it was just frozen to the ground. And so obviously pulling it out at that point was not really an option. The owner and I discussed price a little bit. The car actually belonged to his son, and his son has moved out of the state, and so there was going to be a little bit of back and forth on coming up with an agreed upon price for the car. Anyways, a few months went by, and I ended up getting a call from the father, and he said, "Hey, my son's actually trying to find a little commuter car right now, and he's trying to raise funds to buy this car. He's ready to sell the 914." And it'd been a while since I'd seen it, so I headed back out to the property, picked up the 914. Looked like a decent little car. It'd been sitting, kind of interesting. The father, he mentioned, he's like, "Yeah, this car has been sitting for 7 or 8 years." And so then we looked at the plates on it, and it had actually been sitting for 19 years. So it's amazing sometimes how long these cars sit, and a lot of times the owners are just kind of oblivious to actually how long the car's been there. But yeah, this car had been there for 19 years. If you look at the left rear wheel there, or excuse me, the right rear wheel, you can see a pretty good bend in it. And that was the reason the car was parked, was just because he had hit something, bent the wheel, the tire went flat, so they pulled it around back there and just never got driven again. So we made a deal on the price, and the other problem we had was the title. The title was missing, and so it took about 2 to 3 weeks to get the title back. We filed all the paperwork for him, and we got the title back, and I headed out to go pick it up. And when I got there, I took the rollback with me. I figured it'd be easier to get it out of there with the with the rollback and a snatch block. And but I got there and I realized pretty quick that I needed an extra set of hands. And so I sent my buddy Jason. I sent him a pin, and literally like 10 minutes later, he showed up. So the interesting thing about this 914, like I say, about a year ago is when I first, I was starting to look around for 914s. A friend of mine was interested in building a track car for his son, and we started talking about the 914, and it seemed like a really good fit. And so it was about this same time that these guys told me about this car that I was actually looking around town for 914s. And it's interesting when you start actually looking for something and you start kind of asking around about something. I found 3 of these cars inside of 2 weeks, this being one of them. The other one was the 914 that we did a video on maybe 7 or 8 months ago that had the right quarter panel that was smashed in. I actually passed that car along to a friend of mine, Brett. And the other car belongs to a friend of mine, Gary, who actually works at one of the local parts stores here. And we talked a little bit back and forth about possibly buying that car from him. And then I think he's decided since that he's just going to hang on to it. So it was just interesting that inside of probably 2 or 3 weeks, once I started looking for these cars, that I had like 3 of them right within 10 miles of the shop right here in town. Not a car you see a lot of anymore. There's 1 or 2 of them running around town, and they've become, they used to be kind of the poor boy Porsche, and a lot of people would, even tease that they're not even a Porsche, that they're just a Volkswagen. but they're actually a neat little car, you know, mid-engine car. This one was a 1.8 liter. They also had a 2.0, and then of course they had the 914.6, which I've honestly never even seen one of those in person. They are, you know, like they say, as rare as hen's teeth. So yeah, it was just kind of cool to inside of a couple weeks find this many cars. But so anyways, as you can see here, the tires on this car were not really turning real well. Most of them were locked up, and so I pulled it forward with a come along, and then we got the rollback back in as far as we could, and we're using what's called a snatch block, which is essentially a pulley that goes down and attaches to the corner of the bed of the rollback there, and then we just brought the winch cable down through that, and then kind of shot over to the 914. And the idea is we're just going to drag this back as close to the corner of the bed of the truck, and then my plan from there was just to move the snatch block over to the synchro. That's why I've got the synchro sitting there, and then we can drag that car just a little bit farther, and then hopefully sneak the front end around. So I did ask the owner. We didn't have any keys. There weren't any keys in the car, and he walked into the garage, grabbed a stack of keys off the wall, and sure enough, there was the key to the Porsche. So we're able to at least kind of steer the front end. Again, you can see the right rear is not turning. Looks like the right front finally kind of started turning. But again, this car had been sitting here for 19 years, so things were a little stiff and wasn't really wanting to turn, but this rollback makes pretty easy work of it, and we were able to snake it out of there pretty quickly. My original plan with this, with this car, I thought it'd be kind of fun to do just a video of the recovery, a video of it back at the shop, kind of something similar to what we did on the orange camper van, just a quick cleanup, take it 2 or 3 weeks, clean it up, fire it, get it running, get it driving. And then honestly, the more I looked at this car once I got it back to the shop, 19 years sitting outside it in a field in a guy's backyard, everything on it was crusty. All the rubber around the windows was needing replaced. The little vinyl pieces there on the B pillar just gone. The paint's not horrible. The deck lid was a little rusty. It was actually rusted shut, and I wasn't able to get the deck lid open. And as you can see there on the hood, there's a rusty spot where some body filler's cracking out. I mean, all in all, it was a really solid little car, but my plan of just a quick cleanup on it and making it run, I kind of, after having it here at the shop for a few days, I realized that wasn't going to happen. That this car honestly needed a complete restoration. And so I got kind of discouraged pretty quick with this car. I did actually get it to fire. It turned over right away, and I did get it to fire. I didn't actually get it running because it needed fuel lines and fuel pump and everything like that, but I did get it to fire a couple of times. So the more I thought about it after getting it here, and then just realizing, this seems like a really small little car, be a simple project, but honestly, it's a huge undertaking. The battery tray area is an area to check on these cars, and honestly, this is the first one I've really dealt with that much. And the battery tray on this car was pretty rusty. The rest of the car, the jacking points, that's another spot on these that rust out really badly. The jacking points were actually pretty solid. Those side sail panels, the rocker covers, they were nice and solid. So really, the battery tray, and you can see there on the deck lid, like between the taillights, the deck lid was pretty rusty. So it really needed a deck lid as well. So my plans changed pretty quick once I got this back to the shop, and I realized that I probably wasn't going to take this project on. And so I actually had a couple other vehicles for sale, a couple of little Caddy pickups, and I had a buyer or a potential buyer call me on one of the Caddies, and we started talking VWs. He has a ton of VWs. He has some split buses. He has a bunch of Porsches, or at least a couple Porsches, and he's done a lot with Porsches. And I happened to mention that I just picked up this 914, and suddenly he was not interested at all in the caddy pickup that I had for sale, and he was extremely interested in the 914. And so I sent him some more photos of it. We got talking back and forth, and made a little bit of money on the deal, and basically passed it along to him. And I did get a couple photos from him probably a couple days ago. He's already got it, got all the wheels freed up, and he has it rolling. He's got it sitting on some Fuchs. It's looking really good. But his plan for the car is to do a complete, full restoration. And again, I just decided that with all the projects I have going on here at the shop right now, I really need to be putting my time into a couple of my buses, and maybe pass this 914 on to somebody else. So I went to a good home, and it's going to be back on the road in no time, I'm sure. Thanks for watching, guys. Just figured I'd share this quick recovery with you. We'll catch you guys later.